It was a few nights in the backyard ago. You explained to me one of the weirdest stories I have ever heard in my life. And it has to deal with your story on the James Smith Cree Nation. Can you fill us in from beginning to end what's going on and what's going on right now with this story? I'm going to put it in the show notes also.
I absolutely can. This is how I became a minor media figure in Brazil for about a week. So in February, late February, early March of 2020, James Smith Cree Nation and the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations came out in the CBC article talking about a plan they had to buy between 6 and 60 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. You remember February 2020, you remember that vaccine in Canada was like liquid gold. Nobody had it. There was not nearly enough to go around. So 6 to 60 million doses was an astronomical amount. It still is. It's a lot of vaccine. And it's especially considerable when you think about the fact that James Smith Cree Nation has just a few thousand members. And there's not nearly that many people in Saskatchewan at all, even if you were to take the entire province. So the CBC article kind of touted this deal as a good thing and talked about, the fact that they had approached the federal government for money, for $21 million to finance it. And then I started looking into it a little bit. And what I found was really, really truly the strangest story I've ever had to cover. The company they were going to buy it from was called Devati Medical Supply, LLC, and it was located in Round Rock, Texas. It's sitting near Austin. And looking through its tax and property records, it had only been formed, I think, the previous year. It was a very young company, had very little history of doing this kind of thing. And its owner, Herman Cardenas, didn't really have any history that I could find of being in the medical business, even though he claimed and other people claimed that he had been. So I reached out to him. He swore the whole thing was above board. Reached out to Chief Wally Burns at James Smith Cree Nation, who also said this whole thing was above board, there's no issue. And then I reached out to AstraZeneca, the company that created this vaccine, and they basically said, we phoned the police. We don't think this is legitimate. Something is rotten here. Which means the implication of that was that if AstraZeneca is right, then the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations and James Smith Cree Nation asked the federal government for $21 million worth of taxpayer money for something that was bogus, was totally, totally false. So I started reporting on that. And as I reported on it, more details came out. We learned that a woman in Ontario named Carrie Liddy had kind of been the middle woman, as it was, between Devati and James Smith Cree Nation. We learned that we heard from several ministers, both in Saskatchewan as well as the federal Indigenous Services Minister at the time, Mark Miller, say quite resolutely and quite openly that they thought this was a scam and that this didn't make any sense. And that was kind of the end of the story in Canada, at least as far as we could see. That was kind of the marking of it. And then, a few months later, it surfaces its head again in a very, very strange and different way. And that is that I get a bunch of DMs on Twitter from Brazilian reporters. And I'm sitting there wondering why all these Brazilian reporters are DMing me. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Start to look at their messages, and they are telling me that a Bolsonaro official has been wrapped up in a scandal after trying to buy vaccine from this company, Devati Medical Supply. And this time it was hundreds of millions of doses of vaccine. And they found, by searching the reporting the StarPhoenix had done on this, and the Saskatoon StarPhoenix was cited in many major Brazilian dailies and other digital publications. And I was getting like phone calls and messages from all these Brazilians. So I tried to help out my Brazilian colleagues as best I could. I was so deeply confused. I had no idea what was going on. And it escalated to the point where it became an international scandal, and it kind of had its roots right here in Saskatchewan, in a relatively small First Nation in the north. I'm hoping to write more on this story in the future. I don't think it's obviously dead in the water. This deal is not going forward. But I think as far as the players up here, Wally Burns won't talk to me. His only comment has been to ask us to take down our reporting, which we will not do. And Herman Cardenas is not picking up my phone calls. So that's kind of the state that we're there. And that's how I became a minor media figure in Brazil.